Born in China to Presbyterian missionaries, her early years were a blend of familial warmth and Chinese culture. At the age of 5, fleeing the shadows of the Japanese invasion during World War II, her family embarked on a journey that would take them through the heartlands of West Virginia, North Carolina, and Virginia. But it's not just her early life that captivates, it's her literary legacy that truly shines. With over 40 books to her name, including 18 novels for children and young adults, she has woven tales that resonate deeply with readers of all ages. Her accolades speak volumes, having won the prestigious Newbery Medal twice, first for The Bridge to Terabithia, and then for Jacob Have I Loved. Recognized as a living legend by the Library of Congress in 2000, the American Library Association honored her with the Laura Ingalls Wilder Medal for her enduring impact on children's literature. It is an absolute honor to welcome the legendary Katherine Paterson.
Well, thank you, Christopher. It's lovely to be with you today.
Your stories often explore the complexities of childhood and adolescence with great empathy and insight. Can you share a particular moment or experience from your own youth that has profoundly influenced your approach to storytelling?
Well, I'll tell you one that's been told a lot, because when we came back from China, I went into the first grade at this Jenner Park School in Richmond, Virginia, and it was Valentine's Day, and I'd never done Valentine's Day before. I knew that this one very popular girl, everybody was supposed to bring her a Valentine. So somehow, I don't know whether I made it or whether my mother had some, but anyhow, I gave Martha a Valentine. But the boy who was acting as the postman opened the box and brought up everybody his or her Valentines and put them on their desk. But he never put a single Valentine on my desk. And I wasn't too distressed because I knew I was sort of invisible in the class. It wasn't that people actively hated me or bullying me. That came later. But when I was walking home with my older brother and sister, they were showing each other all the Valentines that they had gotten. And I began to be a little worried. What was wrong with me? That I didn't have any. And I was ashamed to tell my mother that I hadn't gotten any, but of course she asked to see my Valentines, and I had to admit that I didn't have any. Well, she was undone. She said, I can't believe any teacher would allow a child to come home without a single Valentine. And after I became a writer, she said to me once, you should write a story about the day you didn't get any Valentines. And I said, Mother, all my books are about the day I didn't get any Valentines.
Do you mind explaining that part? About how they're all about your Valentine?
And of course, at the age of 6, I really thought I had a very hard life.
I see. Your works often tackle mature themes such as death and jealousy, yet they're accessible to young readers. How do you navigate addressing such complex topics while ensuring they remain appropriate and relatable to your targeted audience?
Well, you're making me sound a lot smarter than I actually am, Christopher, when you phrase the question that way.
No. You are a very great writer.
But I think maybe if there's a secret, is that those 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds and 13-year-olds and 15-year-olds are still there inside of me. I do have, I think, a very good emotional memory. I remember how things felt to me. Now, I may have read the situation all wrong, and I have sisters who will contend that I did, but they were the feelings that were very real to me at the time. And I think that's what I go in and use when I'm writing. It's not that I interview kids, but so it's mostly what I feel inside myself. It's not that I've had all the experiences that my characters have at all. but I translate the feelings from my own life to the feelings of my characters.
Bridge to Terabithia has deeply resonated with readers worldwide. Could you share with us the inspiration behind this poignant story and how it evolved during the writing process?
When my children were going to an elementary school, we lived in Cone Park, Maryland at the time, which it's not just a suburb of D.C. Our house was a block from D.C. The lines were right there. And the elementary school they were going to was not in very good shape. We lived on the diverse side of the county, and we kept pleading for more resources. And the school board was pouring all the resources into the rich side of Montgomery County. And they decided instead of renovating our school, which it badly needed, they would just close it down and send us to the nearest school on the other side of town. And so our children suddenly were into school and put in classes with other children that they didn't know. And of course, those kids had been in school together since kindergarten. And my son David was in the first grade. And he was going into the second grade, and in the first grade, he had drawn all these funny pictures, and everybody thought he was such a great artist. And he still is quite a jokester, and everybody thought he was the class comedian. And then he gets to the new big school where everybody just thinks he's weird, and they don't appreciate his art or his humor. And he hates it, of course. And would come home every afternoon and say, "I'm never going back to that school, and you can't make me." And of course, every morning I would shove him out the door to go back to the school that he hated. And I felt terrible about it because I had had to change schools so many times as a child and be the new kid that everybody thought was weird. And then one day he came in, he was smiling and his old self, and he said, "Me and Lisa Hill are making a dioramic of Big House in the Little Woods." And I thought, oh my goodness, if his only friend is a girl, he's never going to fit in. And then I met Lisa, and she was funny and bright, and I thought, well, anybody would be lucky to have Lisa for their best friend. And in the summer, after the first grade, Lisa went to the beach with her mother and two sisters and brother, and she was struck by lightning and killed. I didn't know how to comfort my child. I didn't know how to make sense of this terrible tragedy at all. But I'm a writer, and the way writers make sense of life is by writing a story, because a story has to make sense. I began writing this story, and I knew that in the story there would be a friendship between a boy and a girl, and the girl would die. I had a lot of false starts. I wrote it in pencil because I thought, it would be very tentative because I wasn't sure I could tell this story at all. And then I began to gather steam on it, and then I got to the chapter where, in the next chapter, Lester Burke was going to die. And I just stopped writing because that's the only way I could keep her alive. And it had been a terrible year because that spring I'd been diagnosed with cancer, and I didn't know if I was going to live. And my children were very, very upset. And then Lisa dies. And so our whole family life was turned upside down. And so I stopped writing because at least I could keep Leslie Burke alive. I had control over that. And I had lunch with an old friend, and she asked me that horrible question, what are you working on now? Never asked me that. And I said, well, I'm trying to write this story about a friendship between a boy and a girl, but I can't, in which the girl dies, but I can't do it. And I said, I guess I just can't face Lisa's death again. And she said, I don't think it's Lisa's death you can't face. I think it's your own. And I knew she was right. And so I thought, well, I have to face my own death. And so I went back and I just wrote it with sweat pouring down my arms and under my arms. And I just wrapped it up and mailed it to my editor without even rereading it because it was so painful. And then as soon as, of course, I mailed it, I was appalled because real writers don't do that. Real writers don't send a scream of pain. That's not art. And I was sure she would say, well, up until now, you showed some talent, but obviously, whatever you had is gone. If you would dare send something like this to me, because believe me, it was terrible. And she said, now let's turn it into a story. She said, is this a story about death or is it a story about friendship? I thought it was a story about death until she asked me the question. And then I said, oh, it's a story about friendship. And she said, that's what I thought. Now you have to go back and write it that way. And she said, you know, in any real friendship, both friends are going to change and grow because they know each other. And I can see how Jesse changes because he knows Leslie, but I don't see any change in Leslie. And so that was the problem she gave me to solve in order to turn it from this cry of pain into a real story. And I remembered Pansy, who bullied me when I was in the 4th grade, Calvin H. Wiley School. And I thought, Pansy, I'm going to get my revenge. I'm going to put you in my book. And of course, I couldn't name her Pansy, because even though that would be a wonderful name for a villain, don't you think? But I was afraid if I named her Pansy, the real Pansy would come back and bully me again. I began writing it with including my new character named Janice Avery. And I thought, you know, I can't imagine this book without Janice Avery in it. She's such an important part of the book. No wonder it wasn't any good, because I didn't have this very important feature that was someone that Leslie learned to appreciate. Leslie was afraid of Janice Avery. Everybody was afraid of Janice Avery. But by becoming sort of friends with Janice Avery and helping Janice Avery, Leslie did grow and change with Jesse's help. So that was a long answer. Sorry.
No, you're okay. I'm sorry about, wow, everything that has happened to you. I think writing books in a lot of ways is a way for writers to cope with what has happened, like a lot of traumatic experiences they had in life. For your example, like, you know, bullies. How's your cancer update, or what's your cancer status right now?
Well, I haven't seen a bit of it since 1974. So I think I'm in pretty good shape.
Oh, wait, 1974? You haven't? It's
I
2024.
No recurrences.
Okay. You're probably fine now, I mean.
Yeah, I'm fine now.
As Vice President of the National Children's Book and Literacy Alliance, can you tell us about the organization's mission and some of the initiatives it's currently undertaking to promote literacy and literature among children?
I would love to tell you what our current project is, because you can go to our website, the NCBLA, and pretty soon on that site, you will see a whole program for teachers and parents. I'm on teaching young people how to write children's books and illustrations. And our president, Mary Bridget Barrett, is a genius. I mean, honestly, I've never known anybody as smart and as hardworking as she is. I have worked very hard with this program, and we're going to be introducing it fully quite soon. We just had to get permission. That's what slowed us down because we've had to write to all the publishers for use of the work. And some publishers have been extremely cooperative. Others have been dragging their feet. So as soon as we get all our permissions in order, we'll be able to launch that. And I think it's an absolutely marvelous program, telling, about helping people see how to develop character, how to do dialogue, how to do all the elements of writing. It works very well in fiction, but I think now good nonfiction uses the same elements as good fiction.
Reflecting on the journey from the time you wrote your early books to the present day, how do you perceive the evolution of children's literature, and what do you believe remains timeless about storytelling for young readers?
Well, it's sort of a strange world for children's books. I came in, and there was a great heyday of writing and publishing for children just before I joined the club. And that was because under the Johnson administration, a lot of money was given to libraries. And so libraries bought books like crazy. And then as soon as my first book was accepted, they said, "We're sorry, but we've lost our funding for publishing, and we're going to have to wait a while before we can publish your book. Do you still want us to do it?" And I thought, well, somebody wants my book, and all those other people did not want my book, so I better stick with the one who really wants to publish it, even if it takes a little longer. My Japanese books that are books that are set in Japan, because I had lived in Japan and I love Japan, would not be something that American publishers would think they could sell. I was very fortunate that Thomas White Kroll accepted my first book because I'd just come back from Japan. She thought American children could certainly learn about Japan. And so they published my first three books. And then I wrote British Terabithia was my fourth novel. It's just been astounding to me that it's sold. I mean, it sells more than all my other books put together still after all these years. But now, we're going through another difficult time. Finally, publishers have woken up and started publishing a great variety of books by diverse writers on diverse subjects, which we've been crying for many years. And my goodness, would you believe people think that children should not read about themselves or about children different from themselves? I mean, how dangerous is that going to be to a child's soul to read a book about somebody different from themselves? Where is the fear here about other people of different races and different genders and different religions? It's just unbelievable to me, but boy, is it making a terrible mess in children's books.
Yeah, I heard representation was important.
Poor Governor DeSantis, what a frightened man he must be that he has to threaten to jail librarians and teachers who want to have these books in their classrooms or in their school libraries. That is so pitiful. It just breaks your heart. And to be so proud of the fact that you're doing this, it just astounds me.
Yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous. It has been an absolute pleasure diving into the remarkable journey and literary contributions of Katherine Paterson. From her formative years in China to her traumatic experiences to her current legacy as a champion of children's literature, her books continue to captivate and inspire readers of all ages. We extend our heartfelt appreciation to Katherine Paterson for sharing her insights and experiences with us today. Thank you for gracing us with your presence and wisdom. It has been an honor.
Well, thank you, Christopher, for having me. And my best wishes to all of you out there. Be not afraid. Read every book you want to.
I'll make sure to keep that in mind. See you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Same to you, Christopher.